What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to College Football Talk with Peter Burtonette. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my Week 1 projections. It is a loaded slate that I'm very excited for to really fully kick off the college football season. Had a pretty good week of action in Week 0, but now it is full go. Before I get into it, though, if you're going to enjoy this video, please feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're always up to date whenever I upload. But 3 top 10 matchups, and obviously it starts with the one that is in Columbus. Number 1, Texas, at number 3, Ohio State. Ohio State's favored by 1.5 in this one. It's noon Eastern on Fox in Columbus, Ohio. It's Arch Manning, who's the heir apparent in college football, born of football royalty, obviously the Manning family, against Julian Sayin, the kind of heir apparent at Ohio State, at least. The question is, how does the Buckeyes' offensive line hold up against Texas's pass rushers Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, and the addition of Murad Wilson from Syracuse? Carson Hinsman, Tegra Shabola, and Luke Montgomery all have a pretty good amount of experience. Right tackle Austin Siereveld also got some good experience during that playoff run. And then they also bring in left tackle Ethan Uniawa from Rice. So it's a good offensive line, but those pass rushers are probably 2 of the best in college football. They had something like over 30 tackles for loss last year, and I think 17 sacks. So that'll be big. I think at times this Buckeyes offensive line does struggle against those guys, but I think they are able to kind of maybe minimize some of that a little bit. For Texas, can they get their offense going more? Obviously, they've got more of a dual threat quarterback in Arch Manning than they had in Quinn Ewers last year, but that's a big question, especially because they have kind of some new look at wide receiver. They do have a couple good running backs that are coming back this year, Quintravion Wisner and CJ Baxter. But that's an important question. How do they do? Important question: how do they do against Caleb Downs and company? Also, how does Malik Muhammad and the Texas secondary do against Jeremiah Smith? Last year, they held him to 1 reception for 3 yards in that Cotton Bowl. Obviously, it proved not to quite be enough, but they did a really good job at shutting down the best wide receiver in America. So the question is, will they be able to shut down Jeremiah Smith again? And if so, will it be enough? One other kind of additional question I think that will be answered in this one is, how do some of these new guys for Ohio State, running back C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia and tight end Max Clare, factor into this offense? I would see Clare maybe plugging in a little bit more in a featured role, especially if they decide to pass the ball. Obviously, if the pass isn't working, if the secondary does kind of what they did last year, I could see the Buckeyes turning to Donaldson, James Peoples out of the backfield, maybe even go with a couple wide receiver sweeps or something like that, because obviously you've got Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes as well in that offense. So it comes down to a prediction, though. I do think Texas's defense is going to be a little bit too much for the Buckeyes, which is kind of the opposite of what it was last year. Obviously, Ohio State's defense held Texas to 14, but I just think Texas has the edge there. I do think they have a slight edge, at least at quarterback as well. Obviously, Ohio State has the better receiver and group of receivers, but I do think Texas is going to go into the horseshoe. It's been, in these non-conference games, not too much of a fortress, to be honest. So I think Texas gets a 27-20 win in this big stakes opener. Next up, you've got number 9 LSU at number 4 Clemson, a true road game, which I love to see. None of these neutral site games. This is how it should be, just like Texas and Ohio State. This is really good for the sport. And the other top 10 matchup is also at a campus venue, if you can call it that. I'll get to that one in a second here. The Clemson Tigers are favored by 3.5. This is 7:30 Eastern on ABC in Clemson, South Carolina. This is arguably a battle of 2 of the best quarterbacks in college football, Garrett Nussmeier against Cade Klubnik. Nussmeier threw for over 4,000 yards last year and I think 29 touchdowns, while Klubnik threw 36 touchdowns and over 3,000 yards. Klubnik returns all 3 of his receivers, Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore, while Nussmeier brings back leading receiver Aaron Anderson. So I think there's an edge there to Clemson in the wide receiver game, at least. I think quarterback, it's fairly even. You could argue a case for either quarterback, I think. Also on defense, Clemson probably has the best defensive line in college football. TJ Parker, Peter Woods, and Will Helt in addition from Purdue. And then LSU probably has the best linebacker group. They've got Whit Weeks, Harold Perkins, and then defensive end, which he'll be coming off the edge a little bit there, Patrick Payton in addition from Florida State. To me, The big question here is which defense can get the key stops, and also which one can force turnovers. Clemson did a really good job at doing that last year. They had a plus 16 turnover margin. They got a lot of the guys who contributed to that coming back this year. And Klubnik also took care of the ball very well. Khalil Barnes comes back safety with 4 interceptions. Ashton Hampton and Avion Terrell, both of those guys come back with 2 interceptions each. So I think Clemson's defense does enough in this game. I think it's maybe a little bit lower scoring than we expect. And I'm going to go with Clemson 31, LSU 24. Then on Sunday night, the last of these 3 ranked top 10 matchups, number 6 Notre Dame, who's favored by 2.5 at Miami, number 10 in the country. This one's also 7:30 on ABC in Miami. My question is, will Miami be able to slow down running backs Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price? I imagine working in freshman quarterback CJ Carr, there's going to be a lot more of the ground game. That's what the Fighting Irish do better anyways. So that'll be a key matchup to watch. I think Miami has the better defensive line here with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, also a really good running back in Wesley Besainth. So I think that's kind of the edge in the front 7. But obviously Notre Dame has that advantage in the secondary, Christian Gray, Leonard Moore, Aiden Schuler. Another big thing, question to answer, is how will the new quarterbacks, I mentioned Carr at Notre Dame and obviously Carson Beck coming in for the Hurricanes, how will they connect with their receivers? How will they flow with the offense that they're coming into? Obviously CJ Carr being a young guy, freshman, and then Beck coming into a new offense from Georgia. I think Notre Dame has the advantage defensively and even on offense as well. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame 28, Miami 21. Now moving into a bunch of other games, there's a lot of interesting games in this week 1, a lot of intriguing, kind of under the radar games, especially because these top 10 matchups are going to get all the shine, but I'm going to go over some of the other matchups I think are interesting. Number 25, Boise State at South Florida. The Broncos are favored by 5.5. They're going to be obviously without Ashton Genty, now playing in the NFL. They have what is probably their toughest test of the season, outside of obviously that game at Notre Dame. Some other big games for them at Air Force, home against UNLV, and home against Colorado State. A win here, I think, puts Boise State into the driver's seat for that group of 5 college football playoff berth. A loss wouldn't be the end of the line, but I think it would put them behind some of these other teams, an American Conference champion, maybe even another team in the Mountain West that would surpass them. And who knows? I mean, I don't really expect a team from Conference USA outside of maybe Liberty or from the MAC or the Sun Belt to really compete for a playoff spot. But this is Boise State's opportunity to grab a big one on the road against a pretty good South Florida team. My pick for this one, I think Boise State wins fairly comfortably, 35-24. Next up is an intriguing neutral site game, Nebraska against Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. The Huskers are favored by 6.5. My question here, just kind of quickly going over this one, how do they look under new offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen? The question is fairly easy, I think, to answer. I think they definitely look better this season. I know that's kind of a very general answer, but this will be the first opportunity to see just how much better. I think they will have taken some massive strides forward, and I'm really eyeing their week 4 matchup at home against Michigan, which I'll actually be able to be attending. So we'll see if I get some sort of game day vlog or something like that, or at least maybe some content from that one. But in this game, I'm going Nebraska 34, Cincinnati 20. Then on Friday, we're going to be treated to a couple of really good games as well. Auburn at Baylor. The Tigers are favored by 2.5. They've got a really good new look wide receiver duo, Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton coming in from Georgia Tech, versus the Bears' offensive trio of Sawyer Robertson, Bryson Washington, and Josh Cameron. Baylor had a really hot finish to the 2024 season. I think they carry over some of that momentum. I think it's also a big benefit to be playing this one at home. SEC road environments are some of the best environments in college football. There's a few, I think, in the upper echelon of the Big Ten that somewhat compare, but when you look deeper in, the environments like way down into the lower parts of the SEC are still probably better than what you'd see in the middle or lower half of the Big Ten. So Baylor gets a huge advantage being at home for this one. I think they win. It's technically an upset even at home. Baylor 31, Auburn 27. Final game on Friday night, Georgia Tech at Colorado. The Yellow Jackets are favored by 4.5. I'm going to be really excited to see the offenses battle it out in this one. Haynes King and Justice Haynes for Georgia Tech, and then Caden Salter and the new look Buffaloes for Coach Prime. I think the Yellow Jackets are the better team here, especially early on. Buffaloes are going to be working through some things without Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. So I think Georgia Tech with a comfortable 37-24 win. Then moving into Saturday, we've got Syracuse against Tennessee. This is a neutral site game as well. And in the Aflac kickoff in Atlanta, Volunteers are favored by 13.5. I think the Orange do keep it closer. If they still had Kyle McCord at quarterback, I would consider this to be a major upset wash. I mean, it's easy to forget. This is a Syracuse team that won 10 games last year. I do think they're not quite as good. They were the number one passing offense in college football last year. I think they take a step back this year, but I think they do keep it closer than the spread indicates. Maybe not by too much more, but I think they hang around in this one. But I am going with Tennessee 28, Syracuse 17. Next up, Alabama at Florida State. This is a game that would have been a lot more interesting a couple of years ago, especially a couple of years ago, would have decided who went to the college football playoffs. So I will say FSU might be playing a little bit, steamy, hot under the collar for missing out on a playoff spot to Alabama. But this matchup's lost a lot of luster after the Noles went 2-10 last year. They should be improved. I like some of the additions that they made in the portal, but I think the Tides still roll. I'm going with Alabama 41, Florida State 21. Maybe a little bit closer just because it's at Doak Campbell, but I think Alabama really gets rolling in this one. Finally, some intriguing Pac-12 in quotes after dark games in the late night slate on Saturday. Cal at Oregon State, Hawaii at Arizona. Watch out for quarterback Micah Alejado. He had a really good game, led them to the Warriors to a win over Stanford. Utah at UCLA, Colorado State at Washington. I'm going with Oregon State, just picking winners here. Hawaii, I think, pulls a road win over Arizona. Utah, also a road win against UCLA. And then I think Washington wins, but I do think Colorado covers. They finished, I think, 6-1, won 6 of their last 7 last year. I think they're going to be a really good team. I actually have them projected to reach the Mountain West Championship game and face Boise State in that one. Then moving into Sunday, almost done with these projections, Virginia Tech against South Carolina. This one is also an Aflac kickoff game, and I think the Gamecocks win, but I do think also the Hokies keep it pretty tight. Lenore Sellers, I think, is a little bit too much for the Hokies defense. I'm going South Carolina 27, Virginia Tech 24. Then, finally, rounding things out for this Week 1 action is Monday night, TCU at North Carolina. TCU, the Horned Frogs, are favored by 3.5. This is obviously Bill Belichick's first game in the college ranks. He just named Gio Lopez QB1 as I'm filming this Wednesday night. TCU, I think, is a Big 12 dark horse. And I think even for a coach of Belichick's caliber, I think getting those transfers to click in Week 1 is a tall task. I do think the Tar Heels, because of the coaching and some of the guys they're bringing in, keep this one close, but I do think TCU wins by a touchdown. I'm going with the Horned Frogs 35, Tar Heels 28. So that is all for my Week 1 projections. I'm also going to be dropping college football playoff preview video, kind of giving my picks and my bracket and who I think wins it all. But if you've watched to this point in the video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch College Football Talk. I'm your host, Peter Burnett. Enjoy Week 1. I'm signing out. Peace.